In Europe, more than 35% of the population today lives in rural areas. That is more than 160 million fellow citizens. Historically, the power supply to our rural areas was designed for technical and economic reasons, without burying low-voltage lines. Today, more than 2,500,000 kilometers of overhead networks crisscross our territories, supplying our rural households, particularly in major European countries such as Italy, France, Poland, and Spain, but also in Ukraine, not forgetting smaller countries such as Finland and Romania. This represents more than 65 million subscribers, with a total cable length equivalent to 62 times around the Earth, or 3 round trips between Earth and Moon. Unfortunately, and in the face of climate disruption, disasters are multiplying. Storms, snow events and sticky snow that bring down our power lines, but also tornadoes, are increasingly frequent and devastating. Thousands of trees are uprooted, falling onto these highly vulnerable overhead lines and destroying the power grid, which will have to be rebuilt. It is clear that unfortunately, thousands, even millions of homes find themselves deprived of electricity, plunging our territories into darkness, leaving all its inhabitants in difficulty. The urgency, and the number one priority of distribution system operators, before repairing, is to resupply, within a few hours, all these homes deprived of electricity in an equitable manner, in order to fulfill their public service obligations. There would therefore be the solution of installing at the transformers concerned, high-power generators, to resupply the public electricity distribution network. Unfortunately, these generators are very expensive, very heavy, and difficult to transport in these rural areas in case of emergency. To transport and lift them, they require specific permits and authorizations, a very complex and extremely costly logistical operation for the community. This solution is also completely contrary to the preservation of our resources. A power generator of this power generates more than 10 tons of CO2 from its manufacture. These gensets are then grouped together on different logistics platforms or agencies, which further worsens its carbon footprint during long transports. Another solution would be to bury all our overhead lines, replacing overhead transformers with conventional ground cabin stations, in order to limit outages due to climatic events, which could make the network in these rural areas more reliable as part of the energy transition. Unfortunately, this solution is extremely costly, estimated at around 2 billion euros, and would take several decades to implement, which is not viable for European countries that suffer from year-round power cuts. So, to face and remedy this risk of power cuts and to ensure that our territories do not find themselves in the dark again, we find an alternative solution: innovative, mobile, fast, connected, responsible, economic, equitable, and most importantly, which is already available everywhere in Europe and which would preserve our natural resources. From all these ideas was born QPA, a simple, agile and patented system which is based on the functional and collaborative economy model. No waste and no dedicated combustion engines for this concept. Just QPA generators capable of being driven by the power takeoff of all European farm tractors, which are today the only mobile machines available in large numbers anywhere in Europe. And by selecting just 10% of the latest generation tractors throughout Europe, the equivalent of around 1 million tractors, and using QPA generators arranged according to a predefined geographical grid, QPA is able to provide and Uberize electrical backup for our rural and semi-urban territories and to supply demand with over 135 gigawatts ideally distributed, where you want, when you want, and as you want. This represents the equivalent of more than 150 nuclear units in Europe. So, during this period of ecological transition, and without forgetting anyone, and in particular the 65 million fellow citizens living in rural areas, and to no longer be deprived of electricity for hours or even entire days, and to be able to benefit from a Aspire solution, what are we waiting for to adopt QPA innovation together for a truly responsible and equitable public service for all? Quick power access. the electrical rescue of our territory.